I don't know what to do with my hands.
What is this? What are these things? What are these appendages?
When I think of like, whenever for a split second, when I remember Christian Harloff like bring up everyone hands on screen, including the managers, kind of thing. For a split second, I think of like that creepy hand dude, Butler from Scary Movie with the hand.
This is my strong hand.
With the mashed potatoes.
Yes.
Yes, guys, thank you so much for hanging out with us. I'm Alex Mack, part of the Call to Action crew, and we are breaking down arguably one of the best matches of the year, the singles tournament finale between Adam Collins and Jeff Sneider. And I'm doing it with some of my two favorite people of all time, Miss Megan. What's up, boo-boo?
Oh, always a pleasure being on screen with these lovely ladies. So I am doing just fantastic.
Yeah, I'm excited to get your breakdown of a 5-round match as well. So that's going to
Yes, this is new for us in this format. So this will be good.
Yeah, absolutely. And Danny, I feel like I haven't seen you in a while when it comes to like breakdowns and reactions. So this is a little bit newer for you again.
It's been a bit. Yeah, it's been a little bit. It's nice to come in and hang out on a Friday. Yay!
Yeah.
Hello, it's Friday.
All right, well, guys, thank you so much for hanging out with us. I know there's like one of you guys, like 3 of them. So Brandon and Dean, thanks so much for hanging out with us. I really appreciate it. So we are going to be breaking down this match, like I said, between these two huge competitors. And so we are doing things a little bit different. So when we break down these matches, we are going to be watching the matches, but we're not necessarily going to be listening to the matches. We're going to be like reading questions, all that good stuff. But I just want to give you a lot of that information. But also it's going to be filled, obviously, of spoilers. So heads up. And if you've been spoiled, if you've been spoiled because of this is kind of your own damn fault. So
yeah, you've been
just like you know what you're getting yourself into. You know
the titles on the you clicked on it. You clicked on it. You know
you did this. You did this to yourself.
You'll have Danny like coming at you with the nails. You got spoiled. Are you kidding me?
I need to go and do my nails.
Are you kidding me? You were spoiled? No.
Girl, let me tell you.
Hands. I talk with my hands.
It's
Girl, me too. So it's all good.
Hairdresser in you. Absolutely.
It is. Yeah.
Yeah. Okay. Also want to give you guys a heads up. We are also accepting super chats and Streamlabs, so I'd really appreciate you guys if you guys have any questions, comments, or anything that you just want to ask us about. Feel free to let us know, and those we'd really appreciate it as well. Okay. So our first segment of tonight's episode is really going to dive into some numbers, specifically the stats, match my stats. And so this is going to be all about Megs. Megs, I'm going to go ahead and bring up the stats page. Can you really break down this whole thing for us?
Absolutely. This is a lovely 5-round match, so we got a little bit to get through, but essentially things were kind of up in the air and fairly competitive up until the very end. Going back through round 1, Sneider did miss a question there in round 1, so he ended up with 7. Collins gets a perfect round, however, is not able to hit his bonus, so he is only up by 1 point. They both go perfect in their round 2s, with Collins taking Kubrick on his first spin. Sneider spins away from spy movies initially and takes Tyler Perry, but they both end up getting the full 8 points. So that takes us to 15-16. Collins still only 1 point up. Then we get to the betting round. We end up getting young adults movie adaptations. Technically, Collins would have been the one to spin because he was ahead. Sneider bets 2 points. Collins bets 1 point. Collins does get the question correct, though Sneider does not. So we have a little bit of a swing there. So there's a 3-point swing there, making it 4-point difference going into the speed round. However, the speed round also is very similar to round 1 and 2. They are very comparable. Collins is able to come out with 8 points. He passes on 2 questions, but does not miss any. Sneider answers 9 out of the 10-point questions correct. However, he misses one, so he only gets 8 points out of that round. Then we get to the championship final round. Sneider is pushed to have to hit his 5. He does miss that, giving him only 5 points. Collins only having to hit his 2-pointer for the win. Accuracy is actually pretty comparable between the two, 84.6 versus 88. However, the potential points with Sneider missing his 5-pointer.
Yeah, it sounds like there she is. Okay. Woo! We were like,
There we go.
There.
I'm back. Okay, I'm so sorry about that.
I like how your Disney princess
too much
voice
for the
kind of
internet
came
to
out
handle.
a little bit.
It was too much to handle.
Too much numbers.
Darling, too much.
It was like Frankie Numbers in the background. He's like, I must manipulate the internet for her. I must. She's doing too good of a job. I must manipulate the internet. That's my impression.
That's a good Frank impression. That's
quite
really
an impression,
good.
my dear.
Yeah.
I must manipulate the internet.
That's a spot on Chicago accent.
Yes.
So good.
Amazing. Definitely.
So good.
Okay. But anyways, I think you caught most of that except for maybe the little bit of the accuracy there at the end. But essentially, potential points earned with Sneider missing his 5-pointer was the big difference maker in those numbers for those two.
Yeah, so I mean, it sounds like overall, I mean, like looking at that chart, it's a pretty intense match. Both do fantastic in the first round. Only by off by 1 point. Also, second round, both of them are perfect, and that's when it starts getting a little bit juicier. Obviously, in the speed round, a little bit of difference is there. Sneider's able to really kind of build himself back up really adequately, and also that betting round is you never know what you're going to get. And the the final round, the fifth round itself, it's very similar to, it's just like a 2, 3, 5-pointer third round in a regular match. But yeah, it was tough. Woo.
Yeah,
okay.
And the fact Sneider was able to keep pace with Collins most of the match, except missing that betting round question and not being able to hit his 5 were kind of the deal breakers at that point, and he wasn't able to regain a lead after that initial being down 1 point in round 1, even though he continued to play very well.
Absolutely. It was pretty fantastic. Okay, well, we are going to be diving into the match itself here in just a split second. Now, again, if you guys have any spoilers ahead, so we're just going to be breaking it down and talking it through, so just giving y'all a heads up. So I'm going to go ahead and bring it up right now. Let me see. Okay. And also, guys, we're going to be skipping through all the promos and all that good stuff. We're not here to see the promos and everything because we've already seen it, to be completely honest. I'm sure you guys have as well. But we're just going to dive into the match itself. Now, I think, I do know, Mex, you kind of reaffirmed it that a majority of the questions are the same categories across the board. Is that right?
Yes. Yeah. When it comes to round 1, they keep the same categories for every question except for questions 2 and 4 is where they change things up. So they're throwing in a couple different categories, but it's always action adventure is 1, dramas is always 3, fantasy sci-fi is always 5, comedy is always 6, horror thriller is always 7, and animated is always 8. So it's that 2 and 4 that kind of changes up. This time 2 was family films and 4 was 1980s, which 1980s was the question that Sneider missed in this first round.
Interesting.
Danielle, do you think that's a good idea or a bad idea that they should continue or not continue?
I don't necessarily think it's either or. I'm kind of indifferent to it. Jeff Sneider was on Chill to Action, and what he did make the comment about animation or animated always being question 8, and how he does not like it being the 8th question because you think you're going to get to the perfect round, and then you get to animated questions. So I personally am indifferent towards it. I think that it's fine. My brain really enjoys that structure from it, but I think it would be interesting to switch them up every once in a while.
Yeah, I think from a statistical standpoint, it's kind of nice to have more things being the same so you can properly compare competitors. However, I do see that it does get pretty predictable And I don't know if maybe switching up to maybe 3 categories or 3 questions interchange versus just 2 of them. So maybe something like that would be something that they might consider implementing next year. But again, I think just like you, Danny, I'm a little indifferent to it. I can see both sides of it. It is making it a little more, I think it's making it a little bit easier for other people to follow along. They can say, oh, we're going to have a question this coming up, and it kind of gets the audience prepared for it. So, Alex, do you have feelings one way or the other?
Well, my only hesitation is that, I mean, I feel like it's definitely a really solid way to go about it. My only hesitation is just that I just really want to see more categories being asked about. There's other, if it's not listed on the second round wheel, when am I going to get my historical epics?
We've been waiting for that one for so long. Ever since we first saw it.
So hard. And that one, there's just a handful. Viola Davis has been on the wheel a handful of times, but she's been, steered away from, except I think once, maybe twice all season.
It's been a couple times, I think.
Yeah, it's not exactly, it's not a category that's right. You don't see very often, things like that. That's Susan Sarandon. We've only seen, or Jodie Foster. We've only seen those, in reference to Irwin. That reboots and remakes has been on the wheel, but it's such a vast category. It's just like, it's such a vast category. There's a lot of hesitation putting in the first round. So.
And I think with the first round, it being the categories that they are, is because the first round is always, they're 1-point questions. It's supposed to be this easy sort of thing. So first rounds are supposed to be your softballs, and having broad or very specific categories, not specific, but like those movie themed categories like that, like genres. I'm sorry, that's the word I couldn't find. Genres, like the each question being more of a genre instead of something like hyper specific, like a Viola Davis or anything like that. It allows for easier gameplay in the first round, so to speak. But I agree with you, Alex. I think it would be super interesting to see those types of categories in the first round, because it makes it more trivia, I guess, like, if that makes sense. I don't know how to say that right, but I think it would be fun to see a lot of these really specific categories like that in round 1, even if they're super simple questions. It would still be fun, I think. So.
Well, my big thing with it is that in every first round match, in every match, there's of the first round, there's 6 of them are total softballs, but there's 1 or 2 that's just a wee bit harder, just a tinge harder, and it's all subjective as well. And
I didn't mean category. I didn't mean question difficulty. I worded it wrong. I was talking about the types of categories that each question falls under, not like the question specifically.
Absolutely. Yeah, it's a little more surface level. I mean, like you said, with genres rather than hyper specifics. Yeah, that makes sense.
I noticed,
but it's still want historical epics.
We do want historical epics. We want to see these questions so bad. I noticed that there were several, even within like the non-family film, and I think maybe just because of having family films in this first round, it seems like there were more family-centered films asked about in this first round than previous, which I just made things very interesting, because I knew quite a few more in those other categories just because they were more family-centered films that I grew up with. Which I thought was interesting on the point of how this match was created.
Yeah, it's very clear that the people whoever wrote these questions in particular were clearly like familiar with a lot of late 90s, early 2000s, because that's where like majority of the movies came from.
Yeah.
Air Bud was like, 96, 97. And then Atlantis, The Lost Empire was 2001. So Narnia was like 2004. So
yes. All ones I knew, but yes, very a little bit more in that vein of questions.
Atlantis it's a Red Bull. It's, me, gotta have it. Gotta have my wings. But Atlantis is one of my favorite Disney movies. I
really like Atlantis too.
Enjoy that movie, and so anytime I talk to people that know it and have seen it, everyone loves it.
Mm.
So it's weird that people call it underrated.
Mole
It
is
is
one of my
totally
favorite.
underrated.
I think it's properly rated. I think everyone who knows it and has seen it loves it. I just don't think a lot of people have seen it.
It's not as well known,
Yeah.
but definitely well loved by those who do actually take the time for it.
Yes.
Whenever I hear lists like top animated Disney movies, that's never in the conversation, which hurts my soul a little bit. But also, I have a lot of hot takes when it comes to Disney animation. Like my favorite Disney movie of all time is The Rescuers Down Under. I mean, that's a hot take.
I would agree with you. I don't know if I put it
That's
top, but
nice.
it's definitely
because everyone I know that's talked about, they were like, "Really, you like that one?" And I'm like, "Yes, George
I
C.
love it.
Scott is
It's
awesome."
amazing.
But outside of you two, like no one else I know, they're like, "Really, you like
fair.
that movie?"
That's fair. Yeah.
But everyone else I know.
So don't know what you all are missing. It's a great movie.
It is
Fantastic.
a wonderful movie. It's the animation is fucking beautiful inside of that movie. I've said this for years. The Rescuers and The Rescuers Down Under have always been like two of my favorite Disney movies. Like, just love it so much.
And also a super underrated Disney.
They're just outside of like the main.
Yeah, it's just a little bit. It's not looked at as it's not looked at as traditional Disney.
Well,
no, it's not.
This is going to turn into like a Disney
conversation.
ladies'
night to talk about this.
That's what it breaks down to when it comes to The Rescuers and Down Under, because it's all about the Disney era that they were in, and about all of the bullshit that was going on outside of what was going on with the companies and all of that stuff.
Black Cauldron.
It's so that came out like in between it, and that's like, oh man, I'm sorry.
Anyways,
I'm not gonna get let's get back to this match.
So we're on the wheel round. We're on the wheel round.
So sorry, off topic. What are the categories?
Yes, so the categories that they had to choose from, let me pull up that list real quick. So they had Stanley Kubrick, scores and soundtracks, spy movies, Tyler Perry, movie quotes, young adult adaptations, Viola Davis, she is on there, SNL movies, Jim Carrey, Inner Geekdom, and Spinners and Opponent's Choice. So a fairly wide range to choose from. Collins ends up spinning Stanley Kubrick on his first one. He does decide to keep it. I think he was kind of weighing a lot of different options. Would not be surprised if he put Inner Geekdom on there to try and trip up Sneider, because we know of his feelings about Inner Geekdom. Wouldn't be surprised if that was put on there by him. But obviously any trepidation that he talked about during the match is not is invalidated, because he goes perfect 8 for 8. Taking his time, going through answering these questions. I'm not as big into Kubrick. How did you guys feel about kind of the level of difficulty in these questions? What were your gauge on this? What do you think, girl?
This is my shit right here. Anytime someone spins Kubrick, I'm screaming at the TV, take it, because I always want to see the level of difficulty and the type of questions that they ask for Stanley Kubrick, because there's roughly 10 films that you have to choose from. He doesn't have a huge variety of things. Same thing for a lot of directors, like Christopher Nolan doesn't have a big variety of films either. But Stanley Kubrick films are a little bit older, and most people don't necessarily look to his go and watch his movies. Like, I don't know a lot of people that have seen Barry Lyndon. So
it's rough.
I like that movie.
No, I get the appeal. It's just it's hard.
It's long and slow.
It's very very slow.
Long and slow. So whenever these questions came up, I thought that they were very medium questions, but that's what most of the Kubrick questions have been so far. But the one thing that I do think, hold on, I want to see what Jonathan Carr was saying. Kubrick is one of my categories. I got 3 out of 4. The Killing was a tough one for me. I haven't watched that in a long time. That was the question that I got wrong. Also, Jonathan, I'm so glad that you said that, because that's exactly what I was thinking too. That Killing question was the one that got me. But overall,
so that would have been that one, that higher difficulty question that's meant to kind of trip you up a little bit.
Yeah.
Okay, very good.
And I think a lot of people don't watch The Killing whenever they try to go and look at Kubrick movies. I don't think
Or
that The
Lolita.
Killing or Lolita. Yeah, I
That movie
agree.
is awful. Well, not awful, but
it's rough. That one's just a rough one to watch, man.
Well, there's a lot going on behind it, but this is turning into like a low key ladies' night while we're doing a watch along.
I know.
What else is new here?
But also, I mean, like it's I watched Lolita for the first time a few months ago when I was doing Stanley Kubrick, when I did we did a top 5 Kubrick movies, and I realized I haven't seen a majority of them, so I binge watched a bunch of his movies, and I was actually very much surprised at how much I thoroughly enjoyed Eyes Wide Shut, and I was like, this is actually really good. Is it one of my favorite Christmas movies? Maybe.
So good,
but it's so good. But yeah, Lolita in particular, I understand what I was trying to do, and apparently there was a lot going on behind the scenes with the studio that he tried to do, but he couldn't do because the studio didn't want to do it.
Yeah.
But I understood exactly what he was doing and how he interpreted the novel specifically, and I appreciated that.
I haven't read Lolita, so that's where I can't really take away anything. I've seen Stanley Kubrick's Lolita, but I've never read the book, so I can't really take anything away from that.
Well, Jonathan Carr, he's one of my guys. We've kind of went back and forth about like what constitutes a costume drama.
Yes.
And now
I feel like
it's an age-old question.
Hypothetically, anything could be. Any Boogie Nights is technically a costume drama. Reality Bites from the 90s is a costume drama. I mean, like, what's considered a costume drama? Are all war movies? Are all period movies in general considered?
That's been my thought, but not necessarily. I mean, like, because I consider, I don't know. Most of the ones I think about is that.
Hairspray is a costume drama. I refuse to believe that. I'm sorry. I refuse to believe it. No.
I wonder if
like costume dramas are more akin to period pieces, and I feel like that's kind of the direction that they're going whenever they're going in costume dramas, because that's just the vibe that I'm getting from that category. I wouldn't put Hairspray in that category. That's
from the 60s.
I was going to say, the further along we go in time, the more of these more recent ones will become history, like considered historical. It's kind of our perception of it.
Right.
But okay, so if a movie like the movie Mean Girls is not considered a period, it's not considered a period film because when it was made in a contemporary times. However, we can look at Braveheart, and it was made specifically, obviously, in the past. Therefore, it makes it a period drama.
Right. So when it's based on when it was made versus what they're trying to portray, is that what I'm hearing?
I would agree.
So like Boogie Nights. Yeah, so Boogie Nights, I don't consider is considered a period drama because even though it was like made in the late 90s, early 2000s, someone tell me the year it was released. But that movie was made it was a film that was like made to be like it was in the 70s. Therefore, it makes it by definition a period drama.
Gotcha.
It's not contemporary. Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
So I'm looking back over here at the match a little bit here where Sneider's finishing up his round 2. He was kind of put in an awkward place, I feel like, with this wheel because I didn't see a whole lot of things on that wheel that he was really going to be super confident in. He ends up, he's on spy movies first. He decides to spin again, which I think was a pretty big gamble. But again, he hits Tyler Perry and he hits all 8 points. So it kind of threw a little bit of that idea out the water, but I was looking at the wheel thinking about him as a competitor, what we've seen so far. I was like, ooh, there's not really a whole lot I really think he's itching to get into. He was just trying to get into something else. But there were definitely some other things that were being a little bit more scary for him.
It's definitely a hard wheel overall.
Yeah, I would have spun away from spy movies also. I don't...
Absolutely, but I think there weren't too many other great options for him either. So
yeah, something that would be a little bit simpler, even if you weren't happy with everything that everything else that's on that wheel, especially thinking of Jeff Sneider as a player. I think that if he even if he was completely 100% unhappy with everything, I think he would have much rather have gone into a different category than staying in spy movies.
Yeah.
And then if he got into spy movies again, then they love it.
Yeah. Spy movies are kind of obscure. They're obscure movies, oftentimes.
It's rough.
Yeah.
Yeah, like the Brothers Grimsby. Like, oh shoot,
is that considered a spy movie?
It is. No, it is. Mark Strong. He is a spy in the movie. It's an action comedy. He plays a spy, and he somehow finds his long lost brother, who's this like local drunk idiot, played by.
Oh, never mind. Then I'm thinking of
played by the dude that plays Borat.
Yeah. Okay. Sacha Baron Cohen.
Yeah, okay. Baron Cohen.
I'm thinking of the wrong movie. I'm thinking of the one with Heath Ledger.
Right? Yes.
Oh,
what was that?
Going back to the period dramas,
That's the bug me.
Yeah, the brothers
Grimm.
Yeah, not the Brothers Grimsby.
Right.
Different.
Very
different.
Wow.
That's so funny. Oh my goodness. So
we are about to go into the betting round, I want to say. Now, this is definitely a really difficult time. Sneider was able to come back. He went into round 2, obviously, with a 2-point deficit. Now he's only has 1-point deficit with 15-16. So awesome score. Really coming back from it strong. But the betting round.
He only maintained a 1-point deficit. He was 1 point down coming out of round 1. And
That's right.
Because they had the same number of points in round 2. But the betting round is where that deficit increases because of what ends up happening with the numbers. Young adult adaptations is the category that they ended up with. I definitely feel like it was a little more in Adam's wheelhouse, but I liked his choice of only betting 1 because he's already ahead and he doesn't want to risk that.
Gosh,
yeah.
Yeah, I definitely agree there. I agree
also.
It's something that I also am a little. I'm not frustrated with it, but I'm not frustrated with the question at all. Thing is, this question has been asked several times in Schmoedown, and that's totally awesome. Thing is, I'm a little more surprised that neither one were confident enough to bet strongly on it. And even though it's a question that they know,
they wouldn't have.
Oh, you're right. You're right.
And you just knew the category.
You're totally right. Yeah, so, but I'm still surprised. Like Sneider didn't get it, considering it has been asked in Schmoedown multiple times. So it just.
I had to second guess myself too. I thought that maybe there was only 4, but then because I keep forgetting that there's 3 before the 2-parter ending.
Twilight, Breaking Dawn, Eclipse, Breaking Dawn, part 1 and 2.
I can't remember which one of the first 3 I was forgetting. I think it might have been Eclipse was the one I didn't think of right away. So if you're not highly tuned into the Twilight series, which I wasn't when it came out, it's easy to forget how many of them there actually were.
Yeah, absolutely. It's
knowing that it has been asked so many times, that is kind of it's an odd miss if you have really studied previous matches.
Yes. And I feel like, the thing is, Sneider is definitely one of those competitors. He's been a little more vocal recently that he has been coming back to study, as most recently. And I do feel like, in spite of this loss, I do feel like we are in the middle of the Sneider-sance. He's killing it overall. And we're going to bring her right back. Oh, Megs, my girl, you're frozen. You're frozen. Oh, dang.
Round 4.
I'm gonna take her off until she breaks off a little bit better. So it's going into round 4. Where is it? Yeah, it's been on this for a while. What's going on here?
You want to say?
I'm just gonna skip right through it because I was taking it a little too long. I am also going to highlight just a few things in the chat. Oh, by the way, Quiz Show is able to keep pace with Collins in our play along. Do you remember Quiz Show? When he was in the Last Round of Standing?
Yeah, I know who he is.
Yeah, he played so well in the Last Round of Standing. I can't wait to, I would love to see him, just hear more about how he's doing.
Yeah, come on in.
Mm-hmm. Yes. And now they're now currently at a 4-point deficit. So Sneider really has to work hard through the speed round to really, redeem himself, obviously. And he does, but Adam, he also does really fantastic as well.
Yeah, going into round 4 with this much of a deficit between them for Sneider, and knowing Jeff's history just is kind of worrisome for me. Going into the round, I love what Adam Collins is doing. I think he's wonderful. This is amazing. Absolutely, like, in there for Rookie of the Year. But I'm definitely rooting for Jeff Sneider. I think he deserves it, and he had a chance to go for it. So going into the match, I was really going for Jeff Sneider. So watching this going into the next round, I was really worried about Jeff's mentality and what was going on in his brain during this time. So I'm more than sure that at this time, if he's able to talk to Roxy, that's what Roxy's doing, just kind of trying to get his head straight and get him prepared for this for this round and what's going to happen after going into it. But Adam Collins is cool, calm, and collected throughout this entire round, and it's so interesting to see because he's a rookie. This is his first year, and he went from a play-in match to the finals, and to get into this new form of play because he hasn't played in a 5-round before. He looked like he's been doing this for years. It was nuts to see because he just breezed right through it, looked super calm throughout it, and it was nuts to see.
But it's kind of funny you say that because he has hypothetically been doing this for years in the fan leagues in a very similar, almost identical format that includes speed rounds and betting rounds and things like that. So a lot of that confidence, I'm sure, was really coming back to him, and that makes us. It definitely, going into this, Sneider, I don't want to say was like a sure thing because it wasn't a sure thing at all. But, there was a lot to be said about Sneider being familiar with and competing in 5-round matches versus Adams hasn't really had that experience in Schmoedown before, in a match like this.
But also, Sneider's never had to do a speed round this way with the new format, which neither has Collins, really, but they're both kind of in that similar instance with this round specifically. But I think they both managed it really well. I think Sneider did realize when he missed his second question answering Felicity Jones versus Alicia Vikander. I could kind of see in his face, there's like, ooh, he realized he answered a little too quickly, but yeah, they are very easy to interchange. Yeah,
they do they do like the same roles and everything. It's like
they're very similar. They're very similar in what roles they take, and their looks are very similar. Their voice tones very similar. So yeah, I'm not surprised he made that mistake, but I think he realized as soon as he did that he made that mistake.
They're also both women that have been in Oscar-winning period dramas with Eddie Raymond, and from A Theory of Everything with Felicity Jones, and The Danish Girl with Alicia Vikander. So just putting that out there,
Yes, absolutely.
We also have some new people in the chat. So hello, Joe O'Keefe. Thanks for stopping by.
Joe.
Yes, thank you for hanging out with us. Yeah, but you're not kidding with Sneider. There is definitely a home field advantage. That's for dang sure. Yeah, so something that, Dean Morgan has also kind of mentioned, hopefully Spectacular is live since everything will be virtual. Is everything with being virtual more than likely? What? I am kind of curious to see how Adam, considering that he's only been in virtual matches, I am really curious to see how he would do in an in-studio or a live event.
That's the big question. That is the big question that everyone keeps asking about him. I mean, he is amazing. I have no doubt that he is top of the list now for Rookie of the Year, but that little asterisk that I think a lot of people still have is what it's going to be like in studio, what's it going to be like during a live event, because that's what we all associate the Schmoedown as. That's the kind of sport that the Schmoedown is. We've been fortunate to be able to go digital during this time, but we all look for, let's get back to what we've known and what this league has been since the beginning.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I
Absolutely.
don't know if December is still like a right time to.
They might be able to get away with doing a studio tape with a very limited amount of people, but it's not going to be a live crowd.
No, I don't think
it
can be. But do it like the debates, like how they've been doing the debates. Like do it like that type of live setting. Like keep everyone's desks far away from each other as much as you need to, but film it and do it live, just like that. Masks on, whatever you need.
Yeah. So, what were your thoughts on this one? There was a question that Sneider passed on that they actually said that Mark Ellis's feed went out a little bit, so they gave him a totally other question within that same vein. We haven't had this come up yet. What were your thoughts on that when you heard it? Versus just redoing the question.
Alex, I'll let you go first.
Yeah, I was a little I wasn't a fan of it, to be honest. I honestly think that it should have been he should have been given, if anything, maybe they both could have been given the same question. Honestly, they could bring Adam back, honestly, and maybe give him that same question and take away that point he did get initially for when the feed did go out, because that's not in Jeff Sneider's, control, obviously. But what is in control, how they fix it, and I don't feel like they did fix it perfectly. That's not the way I would have done it.
And Collins did pass on that question. So that was one of his two questions that he passed and never went back to, or wasn't able to answer again. So that would have given him an extra potential point that he didn't get within the time period. Sneider could have gotten it within the time period if he'd have heard it potentially.
Right. I think if that would have happened and if they would have given Adam Collins the opportunity to also get that question, I would have been like, that's not right, because he passed on that question. So even if they did get a different question or however, Adam Collins doesn't get the opportunity to answer that question.
I think the only reason that they did do that is because
absolutely.
Well, because Sneider did indicate, like, wait, I didn't hear that, but they kept going. So there was some indication that he could have potentially answered it had he actually heard it. So I think that's why they went the way they did. So I
do wonder if, because Roxy's a fighter for her manager, both her and Shannon both are, obviously. Yeah. I am curious if there was some stuff that might have been deleted or behind the scenes or something where they were like, yo, what? Fix this. This was y'all's fault. Well, this wasn't anyone's fault in particular, but sure as heck we can't blame my competitor for this fault. Right. And so I can picture both, like, her being like, what the heck?
They did say when they came back to it that they are making this decision without talking to competitors or managers. So I don't think they necessarily they didn't have a chance to really butt in on that. Sneider did ask why he wasn't getting the same question, which I do understand why they're saying, well, in case you did hear some of it, we didn't know how much of it you heard, that they're giving you a whole nother question, so you didn't have extra time to figure it out. I do understand that. Right. But it would have been interesting to kind of know what Roxy's thoughts were on that too, because she wasn't given an opportunity to really voice in on that. So
I think that they did it right. So
yeah, I can definitely see points on all accounts, but also we have to remember, no matter what they would do, it's impossible to make everyone happy. Let's be honest.
Exactly.
Yeah, so we have to keep that in mind.
And ultimately, whether or not Sneider would have gotten that question correct or not, and kind of where that went, you still would have had at most, maybe you could have gotten it back down to maybe a 2-point deficit going into this final round. It wasn't like they were tied neck and neck. There was a deficit that Sneider was trying to come back from that I don't think he could have made up given what was going on at that point and where they were at in the game.
Yeah, I was thinking the exact same thing. Like, it didn't really matter, though. I think it could have been more I don't think it met technically points wise, but it could have mattered hypothetically for Jeff being a competitor that wears his emotions on his sleeve. You know, he could have been like, well, that could have like really put him in his head moving forward a little bit. You know,
he seemed to stay engaged for the most part. I didn't see anything really fall apart for him per se.
Yeah.
You know, until we got to that very final question, which I think he just got himself stuck in one mindset and just couldn't get himself out of it, which a lot of competitors do. So,
yeah, it's now going into the final round. It is 21-25, in this 5-point round. And, it's a 4-point difference, obviously. And this is really, really tough. So Sneider is really going to pull some points out of his tuchus in order to really make the points go over to him.
This question, I totally understand why he took his time, because I am a big Jason Bourne fan, and I constantly want to flip the second and third film's names. Like, I never want to keep it straight in my head between Ultimatum or Supremacy. There we go. It was an SU something. I couldn't come up with it. But yes, Ultimatum and Supremacy, I always want to flip-flop them. So I definitely understand the head. It can be a little tricky if you don't have a mnemonic already established in your head to keep them straight.
And this part, what for me, as being on Jeff's side for this, watching him worry and panic like that makes me worried and panic, because I know he's such a mental player that I'm like, no, stay there, just think about it. I know you know it. Like all I could think, like screaming at the TV. It's like, I know you know. Just stop and think. You see him running around in his brain like that. It gives me so much anxiety, because I'm like, Jeff Sneider, I know this question. So then I think when he answers it correct, you instantly see his mood shift and change. And then his head is back into the game, because he knows, at least in my opinion, this is what I felt like I could see from watching the match. Like, he knows that could still possibly have a chance in there. And then he gets that second question, gets it right. And
how proud were you of that?
Man, I was standing up and clapping. I was super pumped. And then you get the last one, and it's just kind of a bummer. But they go back to Collins first. But that was watching Jeff like in his brain like that always gives me so much anxiety, because like I just want him to stop and think. So I can't imagine like Roxy like not being able to be there and be present as a presence for Jeff. I'm sure stresses her out so much as a manager.
Yeah. It was so good to see that Sneider was able to push Collins into answering a 5-round question to get to that, avoiding that TKO situation. I think was a big boost for him. Definitely. I think he would have probably preferred to push him to have to hit his 5. But, he made him go at least most of the way with him, which being behind pretty much the whole match, I think that's what you hope for.
I was so surprised that I knew this question.
The comedies 5-point?
I was so surprised. Things I remember the trailer, but I remember her being in it for a split second, but I don't remember the movie. And so I was like, "Is Christmas Office Party or Office Christmas Party?" So I was having like an Eat, Pray, Love moment.
Okay. Oh gosh.
Love, Pray, Eat. Yeah, we also had a Streamlabs from Mr. Ben Rainier. Megs, I put in the private chat. Would you do the honors in reading it?
Yeah, absolutely. So, Ben Rainier says, "Hey guys, can't watch live. Just wanted to say incredible match. Both played great and can't wait for December. December is going to be crazy. It is.
Oh my gosh.
We have got so many great matches already lined up. We just had the teams tournament to figure out, but whoo boy. It's going to be quite the night."
Yeah, it's
so much fun.
Yeah.
I'm also like, no, it's also kind of funny because Dan and Adam are also like two very chill competitors.
Yes.
Just say it. Look at that love. Look at that excitement, Shannon. She's like, my boy.
Oh,
Also,
yeah. She is so proud.
she has 2 tournament champions in her faction.
Mhm.
I can't, that, and no other manager can say they have that. Winston obviously has ace. We're going to find out what's going to happen with the teams tournament.
Right.
But at this time, I think that really solidifies her as, you know, potential manager of the year. We'd still have the teams tournament, you know, to go through, but that definitely gives her a huge leg up. Do you guys agree or disagree?
Absolutely.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm. Okay. We also did get a super chat from Mr. Joe O'Keefe. I think he's the first time with us. And Danny, could you read it?
Yeah, in your opinion, does Dan need to defend against Collins and break the record to be the true GOAT, or does he need to make a name for himself in Inner Geekdom? All the best from Dublin, Ireland.
Very
that's
nice.
That's going to be where I'm going to be one day.
One day.
So I personally don't think that Dan Morrell has to go through Inner Geekdom to still be considered the GOAT. I know that a lot of people put that in there, and I completely understand and I get those arguments, but I think from what we've seen Dan do in the league and how we've seen the league grow into what it's grown into, I think Dan Morrell is just a little bit of an upper echelon of player to say that he doesn't necessarily need to go through that for us to know how great of a person in movie trivia he is. Now, if you're going for belts and if you're equating greatness to the amount of belts that you have, then yeah, definitely Dan's gonna have to go through Inner Geekdom to prove that, because you have to have all of the belts. But and that is also the only reason why I could also consider Rachel Cushing just a little bit higher than Dan Morrell, because she has gone through all of those. And it's interesting to see, because Mike's also tried to do the same thing, but I would still put Dan Morrell as a higher player than I would Mike Kalinowski. So
yeah, I mean, I definitely think that's a really solid conversation to have. I also feel very similar as you when it comes to Rachel Cushing and Dan Morrell. Dan Morrell is definitely arguably the best competitor out there. I technically do consider Rachel to be a tinge above it, just because she has succeeded in singles so amazing, on top of being a successful teams competitor and having IG, which requires a completely different set of skills. And who knows? I mean, like with Chance, you know, having the team's belts like he has, he's a 2-time belts champion with teams. He could very well walk away with it with an IG belt pretty soon. Who knows when he goes up when he has his match against Chandru, you know? So maybe he's definitely would be in the conversation, as well as like some of the greatest competitors that we've seen. We haven't really seen him prove himself as much in singles. I think that's also one of the biggest big things as well. But I think it's just a matter of time before he gets there. I think it's just it's inevitable for Chance, because he is so immensely talented.
Okay, for a second I thought you said that Dan Morrell hasn't proved himself in singles.
Definitely not.
He
definitely has not proved himself. It's like, who is this Dan guy? Like, what has he even done?
Who is this Dan Morrell?
Ew, like, what the go?
And speaking of singles, like, I feel like a lot of people are equating him with that GOAT status because for so long the singles belt has been that top tier, most respected title. So I think as Inner Geekdom is starting to get a little bit more recognition as something that requires a different set of skills, but also just as difficult to get and maintain, I definitely see that conversation of bringing Rachel Cushing into that conversation. But I think just because of the number of times that Dan Morrell has had the singles belt and having that belt being so prestigious since the beginning of this league, I definitely still feel like he's still there. And I think that he will forever have that mentality of a great in the game. Even if Rachel if she was able to be very competitive in singles, she never had the singles belt. She had IG and teams together, but she also was very competitive in singles.
She was top
tier. Yeah, she was top tier a lot. She had a lot of number one contenders.
Let's call it like it is. She's an A-tier competitor, no matter what league she's in.
Absolutely, yes.
She is like the Dan Morrell of IG.
Fair.
To me, at least.
Very
fair.
fair.
She's up there. She's up there.
Yeah.
Oh my gosh. Okay, so we are gonna be wrapping things up here pretty soon. But so guys, please let us know if you have any questions, comments, concerns, or anything. It's Super Chats. We have some Streamlabs. It's in the description box below. Also, just right here. It's just check that out. That'd be really appreciated. Okay, now we are going to be going into our next segment of some of our breakdowns. Like I said, we're trying to do something a little bit newer with our breakdowns, a little more audio focused, essentially. So we're going to go into our next segment, which is competitor profiles. Now, I do want to start with Megs on competitor profiles, since Danny, you're not as familiar with this segment. So Megs, I kind of want to focus on you a little bit as far as like up until now, Adam, his competitor profile, breaking down the numbers real quickly for me. But also, can you tell me anything that you think that he needs to know about himself, something he needs to do in order to take himself to the next level, or to arguably be in the same conversation as someone as Dan? What does he need to do?
Yeah, so essentially he's 6-0 right now in his rookie season, going from a play-in match all the way to being tournament champion. When you look at just the basic numbers, he is rock solid, a 93.3% accuracy. That's higher than most any competitor. Dan Murrell has been up in there. I think his are more in the 80s potentially at this point. I don't have those numbers directly in front of me as far as his full stats, but having had those 2 take KOs, and a KO, Collins is pretty solid as a competitor, but I think what he might fall into is he's had such a hot streak for so long. We haven't seen him hit those set of questions that are just not in his wheelhouse. He seems to not necessarily get flustered by anything. So
Dang.
Dan Murrell's accuracy is 81.99. I just looked it up.
Yeah, that's what I was saying. Yes.
Be an interesting determinant. His full career stats in front of me. But yes, Collins just needs to keep up the momentum and not let up the gas, because to go up against Dan, even with as good as he is, I feel like Dan could push him into overtime, no question.
Something to also remember is that Murrell, he's played over 20 matches. He's played technically 21 matches in entire singles career, 16-5. That is insane.
Yeah.
And also, I mean, like, that's in having as great as an accuracy he does with over 81% is still fantastic, obviously. Now, that doesn't mean that, he obviously has a lower number than Collins, but considering he's played literally more than 3 times many matches.
And the fact that just in the past 2 seasons alone, he's been in 6 title matches. I'm sorry. Yeah, that's 5 title matches. What in the world? That's just by the numbers alone of just familiarity with being at this level. Dan's been there, done that. He knows where he's at, and he is very confident in what he knows.
Okay, well, thank you so much, Megs. And Danielle, I kind of want to know from you specifically. You also, when I think of Sneider, I do kind of think of you a little bit. You have been one of the reactors that have been so much in Jeff's corner. You've been like saying that Jeff is fantastic. He's great. This is like a real Sneider-son situation going on. What do you think? How do you think that his record as a reaction to being in this tournament has changed how fans look at him as a competitor, and also how people are kind of what his expectations are also going into the team's tournament?
How fans perceive Jeff Sneider now, post-tournament, as opposed to pre-tournament, I I feel like it hasn't changed. Like, as much as I've seen inside of the environment, I really haven't seen a lot of people sway too much. I think a lot of people know that Jeff Sneider is an amazing player. He just has had bad luck in some of the matches that he's played. But no one can ever say that Jeff Snyder's not a great player. Look at what he did with the Patriots. Like, they had the team's belt the longest, and what he's done with the Odd Couple and everything else that he's ever done. So I don't think that people are underestimating Jeff. I don't think that a lot of people really have Jeff as their player. I think a lot of us have players. I mean, look at it. We started a damn podcast for Team Action. So a lot of people have their players, and I don't think Jeff Sneider is necessarily a fan's player. So that's why I don't think that his name gets brought up in a lot of the conversations whenever people start talking about players inside of the league. I think it's good that I just want Jeff to get the recognition that I feel like he deserves as a singles player, because he's done so well in teams. We know that he does well in the league, and that's why I was rooting for him throughout this entire tournament season, because I want to see Jeff Sneider do well, because I think that he deserves to be talked about in the same way that John Roca gets talked about, and the same way that Ben Bateman gets talked about, because I think that he deserves that. So that's what else? What was your other question? I'm so sorry.
What how do you think him doing this fantastic in the singles tournament is going to change people's perceptions of how the Odd Couple is going to do in the teams tournament?
I think this is going to hype people up for the Odd Couple for sure. Like, now that Jeff has been on this big run, and we know like how well he can do on his own, and we've seen how well he's done on his own this past season, I think that's only going to hype people up for the Odd Couple, because we've always known that the Odd Couple is a great team. They're a fantastic team. So I think this is going to bring a lot of attention to the rock stars, and that can be a good thing and that can be a bad thing, because sometimes when there's too much attention on someone, that type of pressure can really get to you, and you never know how that's going to play out whenever you're in your match. So we'll see how that goes, but I think that the Odd Couple is definitely one of the teams that to look out for, but because of, I mean, honestly, I'm really looking forward to the Collins-McKee team. Like,
yeah.
Well, that's the team that I'm very much looking forward to the most, though. So I'm sorry, that was...
Oh, no, absolutely. You answered all my questions. Thank you so much. Something that we will have to remember is that they are both sides on the same bracket of the teams tournament. So hypothetically, we could get another match between Sneider and Collins again if is it I can't remember the team name it's like the Deception or something.
Deception.
Like that.
Yeah, it's
Deception. Yeah. So if Deception beats Lethal Weapons. If that were to happen, they and Odd Couple were to defeat, I can't remember who they went up against. Actually, I'm going to see if I can bring that little tournament bracket up.
We had
here it is.
Category 9.
Lethal Weapons versus Deception, and Category 9. Yeah, so that's going to happen. So, yeah, absolutely. So it's going to be the Odd Couple versus Deception or Lethal Weapons. Yeah, I mean, come on, guys. Let's be honest.
We love Jader, but
yeah, I love Jader, but it's the other guy. So, so we might possibly have another reunion, between these two competitors. Do you think, Megs, this is like honestly the start of some kind of rivalry between these two, not only these two managers, obviously, that are fantastic together, but do you think there's like a potential actual long-term rivalry between these two competitors as well?
I think there very well could be. I think Sneider is always looking for that next big rivalry, someone that he can kind of keep poking at. And I think because Sneider has elevated his play so much, and I think a lot of people's perception of him may have shifted a little bit during this tournament because of his consistency during this tournament. I think that's more of what maybe has changed, because there is Sneider has been seen as a little bit of a hot and cold competitor by certain people, and I think his consistency in this tournament has really upgraded him in that sense. He's always been a great player, but his ability to consistently perform at that level is where things have kind of shifted for him a little bit. And I think he definitely wants to keep himself in that conversation, and having this rivalry with Collins, who is this up and coming player, will definitely keep him in that conversation. So I see it from his side. He wants this to keep going, and he wants to develop this rivalry, and any chance to kind of get nip at Shannon and Mike he's all for it.
Absolutely.
Well, this kind of presents an interesting situation. Okay.
It does.
Okay.
It does. Okay, then we're gonna talk about corruption for a hot minute. We're gonna talk about corruption. Okay. Okay.
Mm-hmm.
We're gonna be okay. This is not a competitor profile, but this is a little bit of a manager's profile. Okay. So
tell me, darling.
Wham bam. Okay, we've talked about Shannon being potential manager of the year. Should Shannon draft Adam as one of her core trio? Is that a given or no?
I feel like it is.
There are thoughts.
There are definitely thoughts. The only the bad thing about it is we haven't seen how well Marisol can actually perform, because she hasn't had as long of a run as Adam Collins has. So that's the fact that you're only allowed to keep 3, and because we pretty much know who her first 2 are going to be, which only gives her room for 1. That's it. At least that's my opinion on it. So that only gives her room for 1 other person to take into that trio. So would that person be Adam Collins over everyone else that's inside of her faction, including someone like Laura Kelly? So that's it, because that's where I'm also up in the air with it, because what are you gonna do? You're gonna let Laura Kelly slide? Like, that's a Star Wars player that is that's an ace in a fucking pocket, y'all. I'm sorry. Like,
you want Kelly, okay?
Absolutely.
You do not let her slip through your fingers.
Go, Meg. I'm gonna hear your thoughts.
I'll say I have thoughts on that, though. The only reason that I could see her letting Laura slide is because by keeping, let's say, Mike, Chance, and Collins, you're guaranteed competitors in 3 different divisions. So that gives you a little bit of wiggle room to use that technically first draft pick to pick up Laura. Because you already have so many other things tied up with your first 3 because of how multi-division they are. You can take a more specialized player as your technical first draft pick and not lose too much ground, especially depending on where you are at in the snake draft. If you're towards the bottom and you can pick again within a couple, I'm definitely taking Laura initially and then pick up another strong singles or teams competitors right after that.
Yeah.
I do, however, think that I do think having Laura on board from the get-go as part of the core trio is not only a smart play, just because she already covers 3 divisions with both Mike and Chance.
Yep,
she does hypothetically, you can say both of them could be in Star Wars as well, but they don't specialize in it the way a lot of the other Star Wars competitors have to. And Laura, with just the 3 competitors, she would cover all 4 leagues. Now, thing is, that means hypothetically, Adam, a singles and teams player. Oh, scratch that. And he also an IG competitor. Let's not forget.
He could be IG, exactly. Oh my goodness.
But when he was in the fan leagues, he was actually an IG competitor before he was in singles or teams. So something to food for thought.
Good to know. But also, if Collins is a singles champion, how do you not? And do you risk splitting up corruption?
Yep.
And there's another thing. If Chance is the IG champ, Collins is singles champ, and you take Laura and you leave Mike out and pick him up in the first round, what does that do?
Guys, my big takeaway from this whole conversation is that we need to have a draft special where we need a draft special for each where each of us plays a different manager. Like Danny, you could be Danielle, you could be Winston. You draft like Winston, and you're like bringing the swag up. You're like drip drip, yo yo, what's up? You just do the whole thing. You know, I could picture it's like I can picture you, Meg's like a drafting as heck. Screw it, Kaiser. Why the heck not? I could see you. I could see totally see you doing it for some. I can 100% see you doing it. I would probably be like the weird one with like the droogs or something. I would just try to redeem the whole faction as a whole. Right. But we need to we do definitely need to make that happen. Guys, please assign us managers on Twitter and on Facebook. That'd be really, really awesome. Over to the chat, real quickly. Ooh. Okay, what if she did leave out Chance? Goes Mike, Adam, or Laura? Now that's actually a really great point. Is that although you know obviously corruption being a fantastic teams competitors as singles, they haven't really proven themselves as much in singles. In IG, they absolutely have both, you know, doing amazing. But in singles, we haven't really seen that.
Even though if you look at the numbers, Chance beats out Mike's single stats by a mile. I'm sorry. 100%. Just the numbers factor out that Chance is technically the stronger, statistically accurate singles player. But his hits, because of his seeding, he has come up against some titans of the game early on in his tournament. And now that he's building up a little more cred, I think that's going to start evening itself out, where he's getting up into those a little bit higher seeds to where he's not having to face the titans initially. So that might start working in his favor when it comes to singles, at least in the tournament.
Yeah, that's definitely a lot of food for thought for sure. I absolutely agree. Yeah. John Pierce says no one will draft Mike. He said he wouldn't play for anyone else, right? Things change. Things change. Unless it's like I could totally picture Christian being like, "Hey, Shannon, potential storyline. Do you think?
And also,
would you be okay with this?
Do you think Mike's really going to do that though? Like, do you really think that Mike is going to like, you know what? I'm just going to sit the Schmoedown out because I'm not working with Shannon.
I can 100% see it happening and him becoming a free agent and people actively fighting over him once they realize what the situation. I can totally see it being a huge storyline.
But that's
100%.
I'm not talking about storyline wise. I just mean if those were put into literal sense, like if Mike gets drafted by another manager and refuses to play, or says that he refuses to play but still gets drafted by another manager, do you think Mike would actually sit out a season of the Schmoedown? I do not think so. I think he would find a way to turn it into a storyline.
He'll sit out
a couple months,
and that's it.
Yeah. Yes, I think that's it. I think he would set out for the storyline, honestly. Also, I think, you know, Wareham Herald also presented an interesting idea. What happens if Marisol and Collins were to become team champs?
That definitely puts another wrench in the system.
Absolutely does.
Absolutely. I mean, it makes Collins a guaranteed pick for her. Yeah. He's a tournament winner and he's part of a championship team. You hold on to belts. Yeah. If you're a manager, that's what you do.
It's rough. And that's how Roka became famously so a 4th round pick. Damn it, Megs, I love your laugh. It's so great. It's up there with like RB3 laugh. I love it. Oh, let's see. Yeah, so there's a lot of different, you know, ideas in the chat. You know, Joe Aki says Laura does offer a title contender in Star Wars, which I do not know if what's Mile? Mike. Oh, sorry. Mike. Oh, obviously. Mike. K and L are like next to each other. Mike, Chance, or Adam. Not Autumn. Adam offers.
Does she offer?
I thought Andrew got a.
Yeah, Dylan should be the.
No, I think what they're saying is that she has the potential to be a big contender in the Star Wars League, whereas the other ones do not.
She has less to go through to get herself a title contention shot. I see that, absolutely. Because there's not as many competitors inside of Star Wars that she has to go through versus...
And also, how dare you, guys? Not you two. How dare you in the chat? Because she is obviously a huge contender in Star Wars. Okay, just putting that out there. Huge contender. She is like the one you want on in your faction. Absolutely.
Yeah.
Yeah, they're all fantastic. Yeah, so but it is Dimolante, not Laura. So yes. Yeah, and happy birthday to, the outlaw himself, to Roka. I don't yeah, he's not in the chat, but I think he turns 25 today. So the big 2-5. So congratulations to him. Yes. It's a half of a century situation. That's always
a quarter of a century.
Quarter century. Yeah.
That a half of a half. Yeah.
I remember my quarter century.
Exactly. Fractions, my dude. Fractions. Also, Kaiser going after Mike would be interesting.
Ooh. Very interesting.
Now Kaiser's kind of in an interesting situation right now. Yes. Now, speaking of which, one of the best IG competitors of all time, Kevin Smet, recently announced that he is not going to be he has cancer, and he's going to be sitting out, obviously, in Refocus, and he's going to be sitting out from Schmoedown until when he does knock this whole thing out, he's going to feel so much better in the near future, and he'll return to Schmoedown when he's like good and ready to go. But yeah, that it's definitely makes Kaiser's situation a very interesting situation to be in. Absolutely.
I think
also, please go donate to his GoFundMe page, by the way. Just putting that out there. It's amazing.
I think Kaiser has the most opportunity to really go after other free agents in the signing period versus necessarily being locked into having to keep so many people inside of his faction. I think he would want to. He's developed some really good relationships with certain members within his faction, but also he has the opportunity to really set himself up well going into the draft based on who he signs as those first three. Yeah. So he definitely has a lot he should really be considering his best options to set himself up for this next season.
I agree.
Yeah. Okay, well, we're going to be wrapping things up. That was our thing with competitor profiles, and then we're just going to be finalizing everything over here. Again, if you guys have any questions, comments, concerns, or anything like that, please let us know in a super chat or in a Streamlabs. We'd really appreciate it. The link's down below. Now, we're done with the singles tournament, guys. We were at 36 competitors. Yeah, we were at 36 competitors. Now we have one. Danielle, my girl, we wrapped it up with a nice bow with the cherry on top. How do you feel about the tournament as a whole, as we wrap it up?
Yeah, this was a great tournament overall. I think it completely flipped everyone on their sides. I think a few people might have had Adam Collins at the end. A lot of people were talking about Adam Collins at the beginning. So I feel like a few people definitely would have had Adam Collins at the end of the tournament, winning this tournament. But I don't think a lot of people predicted what happened throughout the way. So even if you did have Adam Collins at the end of your bracket, I bet your bracket was still broken somewhere along the lines, because this tournament was nuts. Like, this whole season was so crazy, like watching everyone, like the upsets that we saw a lot of heavy hitters knocked out in the first round, which allowed a lot of lesser known players to kind of have this opportunity to shine in the second round. And then we just saw all the OGs go and take it back in the third, but Adam Collins just kind of chugged along through the entire way. So it was really interesting to see the way that this tournament laid out.
Absolutely.
Jinx, yeah, my soda. You're not kidding. It's been fantastic. So many upsets overall. Megs, I kind of want to know from you, numbers wise or otherwise, how do you feel about this tournament? The tournament of upsets.
Yes, absolutely. This is definitely kind of shaken up the standings, definitely, as far as where everyone kind of sits, because again, we had some people that we thought were going to be in the finals. They were knocked out maybe in the first or second round. Definitely some quadrants of that bracket were extremely tough and had a lot of really tough decisions to make as far as if you were trying to predict what was going to happen. I definitely agree, Danny. I'd be very, very surprised if anyone had a truly still intact bracket by the time we got to this end, because
I would love to see it. I'm going to need a timestamp on it too.
Yes, I need to know when you made this bracket, because I guarantee you're very hard pressed to have predicted this.
Absolutely.
I am definitely looking forward to, as things are kind of winding down, really looking into what changed for certain competitors as we went along. So I think certain competitors, like Liz Shannon Miller, has really upgraded her status through this. Even though she wasn't able to get to the very end, she has been another big star in this tournament for that side of the bracket as well. I think really her and Collins have been the standout performances, along with Sneider as well, because Sneider, again, that little bit of inconsistency that he's tended to have has been kind of debunked a little bit during this tournament, which has been really good to see. I love being surprised.
Absolutely.
I like my numbers. I love to be surprised, and this tournament has surprised me with a lot of things, and I think it's going to set a lot of competitors up to be in a really good place going into next season.
Absolutely. The singles tournament really changed the conversation regarding Snyder's stats as well. Going into this tournament, he was at like 8-7. 8 wins, 7 losses, which is like pretty neck and neck. So it's like really hot and cold as a competitor. However, suddenly he's 13-8. That's a huge difference. Huge difference.
That's a big jump.
Yeah. So obviously, I'm sure, Roxy is like, he is 100% my dude. He is staying with me no matter what. I don't know if the odd couple is going to still stay together. I do think that I do think unless they win this tournament, I do think they need to split up, honestly, personally. But I think it's time.
They're both such good teams, competitors in of themselves, that they could mesh with a lot of different competitors.
Yeah.
So
I would like it.
I think it's just time. It's like, who's the boss? If it didn't happen by now, so
you just like seeing things taken up in the league. That's just your MO, so I'm not surprised by this.
I just want more teams, okay? I love who's the boss. I love, the odd couple, but I just want to see them on more teams. I love seeing competitors reinventing themselves with new personalities and heel turns and face turns and all that good stuff. And I just want more stuff, Not to mention, Snyder's is like one of those guys you just never know what you're going to get. So that makes him that much more as a competitor. Okay, guys, we're going to be wrapping things up with a nice bow as well here. Not only just a single tournament, but thank you guys so much for hanging out with us. And thank you so much for the new people that were in the chat. We really appreciate it. Thank you so much for the donations. We're going to be just finalizing everything. Danny, where can we find you, your beautiful face, and also your awesome new stuff you're doing with your podcast, Boo Boo?
Alex, every time, man. You can find me on Twitter. You can find me on Twitter at DannyJoy, DANIEEJOY. You can also find me here on the Call to Action Network every Sunday, hanging out with my favorite co-host, Mr. Paul Denuzio, hosting Chilled Action, where we hang out with Schmoedown competitors and do a breakdown interview. All of that good, great stuff. But tonight, you can also find me on the PJ Campbell Network. I will be hanging out with those guys over there watching Cabin in the Woods. So come in and tune into that 9 Central, 10 Eastern, 7 Pacific. So go to the PJ Campbell Network and subscribe to them and go check them out because they're really cool too. And like, comment, and subscribe on this video also, please. Thank you.
Absolutely. So much. It's going to be so much fun. Cabin in the Woods, one of my favorite horror comedies of all time. Great. Megs, where can we find you, your beautiful face, as well as all your amazing stats?
Yes, Instagram and Twitter, Megs_reclaimed. On this channel, doing all these great breakdowns of all these matches. I post my stats on my Twitter and Instagram, as well as on the Facebook page for the main MTS page, as well as all the different faction pages. So be on the lookout for those as we come along, and look forward to, I'm going to be doing some things towards the
Schnikes.
Man. Right when it was about to get good.
Right when it was about to get spicy.
are we doing the video Drew dance?
There we
that
go.
we're-
There you go. There you go. Yes.
Important things towards the end of this season, they're going to be recapping a lot of really cool stuff. So that's all I'm going to say before I zip out again.
I'm going to leave my hands up like this for the lighting.
No.
Yes, and you can find me not only here, being part of the Call to Action podcast group. We definitely work hard here at C2A, so in trying to make content. So we also want to get, constructive feedback. If you guys have any questions, if you have any, feedback for us, we'd love to hear it. We always try to find ways to improve here at the channel. Please like and subscribe to this. I also host a show called Schmoebates, and it is our Schmoedown themed debate show. And next week we're gonna have some really great competitors with Adam Witt against Warfather, aka War Daddy. So it's going to be a real fun time. It's gonna be our Halloween episode. Stay tuned for that. It's going to be next Thursday. And also, I host a show called Cinema Bias with Video Drew, aka Drew Grant, where we dive into our personal, movie biases that really challenge us as movie viewers and movie critics, essentially. So definitely come hang out with us there over at the Video Drew channel. So yeah, guys, thank you so much. Have a great rest of your day. Wear a mask and keep watching movies. Have a great holiday. Bye.